A call for change over how to help veterans who are experiencing homelessness. 9 on Your Side anchor Craig McKee joins me now with a new way of thinking to tackle this problem.
That's
Craig.
right. Kristen, the executive director of an organization known for helping homeless veterans in the Cincinnati tri-state area, tells me the head of the Veterans Administration should defund them to fix the problem, which led me to the obvious question, why?
They're not as incentivized to send them here in the first place.
Nathan Pelletier is the executive director of Joseph House, which helps homeless vets beat addiction and go on to live a drug-free and independent life.
So to get them in the door, they have to be qualified under the definition of homelessness.
Something he says is not as black and white as you might think.
I'm Dylan Hunterlaw. I was a United States Army Reserve for 6 years. I was a 52 Delta generator power plant equipment engineer.
After Dylan Hunterlaw served his time in the Army Reserves,
I kind of got stuck in that vicious cycle of not really having a direction.
he served time behind bars.
I'd lost everything while I was in county jail, basically, and that was a direct result of my addiction.
He's now at Joseph House, but this front door isn't typically open to guys like Dylan.
Some of our hands are tied, oftentimes, because of the fact that they have to be identified as homeless as opposed to needing clinical treatment, substance abuse treatment.
Today, as it stands, you'd have to say, sorry, you don't meet the definition, now we can't help you, come see us whenever you're worse off.
That's accurate. That's absolutely accurate.
Joseph House is helping Dylan out as sort of an experiment to prove their point. You see, to put it simply, the VA pays Joseph House to help homeless veterans who are fighting an addiction. They do not, however, pay Joseph House to help veterans who have an addiction who could become homeless as a result of it. Pelletier thinks the VA needs to reverse that way of thinking and take the money they pay organizations like his to target clinical treatment first.
Well, what we want to look at is what really has the longest impact long term. So prevention is the idea. How do we actually prevent homelessness from happening?
Then you'd spend less on the back end, housing the homeless veterans if we can stop them from being homeless in the first place.
John Clancy is the president and CEO of the Tri-State Veterans Community Alliance, which helps veterans transition back into the civilian world. On January 18th, he testified in front of the Committee on Veterans Affairs on Capitol Hill regarding this new way of thinking and spending to solve the veteran homelessness issue moving forward.
There's an advantage to moving upstream where we can work more on the prevention side so we have fewer veterans that need the vouchers for homelessness.
The vouchers he mentions are part of the Housing First program operated through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The vouchers help chronically homeless veterans pay for rent. On the Veteran Administration's own website for the voucher program, it says the model does not try to determine who is housing ready or demand treatment prior to housing. Instead, treatment and other support services are wrapped around veterans as they obtain and maintain permanent housing.
But having them housed and then in a room is not solving the problem. And there's a lot of good things with Housing First, but a lot of those that were pushed into HUD-VASH vouchers or into permanent housing, their recidivism is high. So, and they end up coming back here eventually.
And you can read John Clancy's full testimony to the committee on my Facebook page, McKee WCPO. But I do want to bring back Executive Director of Joseph House, Nathan Pelletier, back here into the studio. We want to talk to you a little bit about the testimony on Capitol Hill. You were asked to testify. You deferred to John Clancy, and so he actually went in front of the committee. What was your takeaway from the 5 hours of testimony up there?
Yeah, it was great. It was a panel of providers such as the TVCA and Joseph House, like agencies. And then a second round where you had the actual federal agencies that were there. So the takeaway is that people are starting to realize that we need to address the Housing First strategy, and that the idea that maybe just waiting till something becomes a problem isn't always the right way to do it. It works for some people who are continuously chronic, but that maybe upstream solutions such as prevention or clinical addiction, or just engaging them before they get out or into the community as they're getting out of the service, may be a great way to prevent and reduce the problem long term.
We know there are a lot of agencies here in the Tri-State do a lot of great work for our veterans in different situations. For Joseph House, you fall underneath a federal grant right now, and you have 21 more months left in that if you get approved for a second year of it. And obviously the requirements can be rewritten. Right. But as it stands right now, if you get approved for a second year of this federal grant and that runs out, 21 months from now, you guys could be looking at what?
Yeah, it's possible, and it changes all the time, so I don't want to say what is written today is going to be what's written tomorrow. Sure. But what we do know is that the way our program is structured and the way we've changed over the last 4 years is to put the needs of our customer first. Mm-hmm. And what our customers are telling us, our veterans and our clients, is that they need treatment. They need all the other ecosystem type resources that will support them and their families, housing, yes, employment, all the things that we take for granted, that we build over a longer term program. That is not normally the focus of just the housing grants that we have today. Now the grant we have, the grant team allows us to do the clinical work, but they're measuring only housing outcomes. So it's possible, and what we want to look for, and we're going through the process right now, is moving us into a better vertical, which is, you know, being support for our clinical treatment with residential stability.
All about changing the definition
exactly,
of the
correct.
whole thing. All right. Well, Nathan Pelletier, Executive Director of Joseph House, thank you so much for being here. And of course, you can watch the entire report right now and share it with your friends over on WCPO.com. Kristen?